There's the fingers crossed. Okay. That's good. Yeah, let's remember how to do this. For all of our high school followers who should be in school. Make sure that works. All right. Good. Let's start to get on here.
No, we'll keep this one all muted so there's no feedback.
Okay, yeah. Zach, let's just, before we go live, Zach, is sound okay? Mic check. Okay, hey everybody, this is Darren Tipton and Amy Pauley. The coach is here somewhere, and we're going to get started with our live stream here from KFC YUM Center, and we're excited. First of all, we're breathing a big sigh of relief. Technology, I think, is working, and we're going to get started. We started a couple minutes early just to make sure everything was working as people start to log on here, but we were lucky enough to join the man of the hour, the man of the event here, and Jamie Gordon, director of the AVCA, and he happened to be walking by. And so we grabbed Jamie real quick. And Jamie, first of all, thank you for letting us be here. And thanks for stopping by. But we're going to talk a little bit, explain to the people the technology part that's going into tomorrow night.
Yeah, we've been working on this for a while, and the goal of the event and showcase is to try to really highlight and place a spotlight on what volleyball can be, some of the technologies that are being used. So anybody that maybe has been enjoying the Olympics or watching, we're going to see some of the same technologies there. So we'll have the electronic line calling. So immediately the officials will be fed. This ball was in, this was out. So you'll notice there'll be something missing from the match, which will be line judges.
Yep.
We'll not be utilizing line judges. The challenge review of touches and everything like that is going to be very high level, and we'll be able to do that a lot quicker. We've got some neat things with our LED boards around, kind of improve not just the viewership side, but everybody in the venue. And then ESPN is doing a massive production. They'll have 32 cameras production here. They've got 5 commentators for the event. So we're really excited to try to put something together and kick off what we anticipate to be an outstanding season, maybe another record-breaking season.
Yeah, and I talked about last night, we went live, the clicks, I think as far as viewership, the experience here will be great, but the viewership back home with the programs, first of all, you've lined up for tomorrow night will be excellent. But volleyball deserves this event, and it deserves this event to start the season. When we did the podcast a couple weeks ago, football has this, men's college basketball has this, and now college volleyball deserves this. You anticipate, and now not only the programs, the big-time programs, but the experience that they're going to get.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. And I think volleyball has earned it.
Yes.
The sport has shown incredible growth. There's no sport that girls play more, team sport that girls play more than volleyball. What we've seen from attendance and TV viewership is significant. So yeah, this type of event is warranted. And I think also at a time that college athletics is looking and searching for new revenue. There's a lot of increased bills based on what's been happening in current events. And so I think hopefully also we'll be able to show that volleyball is a viable revenue source. There are plenty of programs and examples, especially the ones here, that have shown that there's meaningful revenue that can come from volleyball. And so hopefully this will be another example of not why just, institutions and administrations need to invest into it, but why companies and corporate sponsors, and that they can, really engage in volleyball in a meaningful and profitable way for them.
I have a question about the technology after experiencing it in my season last year. I assume that back row touches cannot be challenged today, tomorrow?
Yeah, so one of the things with the challenge or with the technology that we have, really what that will do is it will enhance the NCAA rules. So all of the challenge rules themselves on what's permissible will be consistent. So a back row touch is challengeable in collegiate.
Okay.
So
yeah.
those types of things are, and so there'll be a little bit of an adjustment for our coaches just because of the process associated with it. But one of the nice things will just be a lot quicker.
It's so much faster.
Yes.
I mean, I think the fans will be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
And there won't be as much arguing on Twitter for sure. But I think everybody will get behind Bolt 6 or Hawkeye or whatever, technology is utilized throughout conferences this year. Because I've seen each one, a couple of them are opting into some different options. But I think just for the fan experience, it's going to be way better. The games are going to go faster, which could bring to more TV time because you're not utilizing slots as much. But I'm excited that the fans get to see that because it really is a game changer.
Yeah, and even, right now, the most popular common challenge is in and out. So that's eliminated right off the bat.
Yeah.
And when you talk about how quick it is, the technology that we'll be using here tomorrow night, the review time averages around 20 to 25 seconds, where traditionally we've been in the 90-minute and a half to plus, and we've seen some examples where it has gone really long. So all of those things help maintain engagement from the fans, viewerships of staying in, and again, recognizing the technology is there and saying, hey, how do we apply it to our sport?
For in-game experience or even watching on TV, will the replays of the challenges be shown? And for the in and out, what kind of graphic will be shown for the ball marks?
Yeah, so probably getting a little more into the weeds than you had asked, but so what winds up happening, and by the way, it's awesome because I've been learning this as we've gone through this, but anytime a ball lands within 7 centimeters of the line, in-house will automatically get a graphic of the ball traveling, and then we'll show how close to the line, if it was on the line, if it was a little bit in or out. ESPN will also get that same feed. Now, they won't necessarily use it all the time, but they'll have that feed. When we look at the challenges, so let's say, for example, there's a touch challenge call for that Nebraska makes on Kentucky tomorrow night. We'll have some music. We'll build up a little bit of the drama in-house. And again, in that about 20-second window, instead of the official making a call, it will go up to the screen. It will show the play in slow motion and then say, challenge successful, or if it was a touch, or if it was a back row attack. And so it kind of also adds a little bit of the excitement and the drama, and that will be fed both in-house and ESPN will get it as well.
Yeah. I'm sure people are wondering why I care about this so much, but I think just for the fan experience, it makes a huge difference. And as we continue to see the sport grow, and you touched on it, getting sponsors or corporations or people who want to invest in these athletes, a lot of that is going to have to come from more media coverage.
Yes.
And so the more that we can do to get the sport televised, the better. And some more exciting plays, that don't take 3 to 4 minutes sometimes to get reviewed, you don't lose interest. And I think the game is so fast as it is already, there's excitement in every play, that the more we can capture it and not lose the attention, the better for our fans. So it's a big deal. People, stay with me on this one.
It is. And so one of the areas that we've also really engaged for this event, about 3 years ago, the FIVB, the International Governing Body, created a partnership with the Establishment of Volleyball World, which kind of manages some of the events and the media rights and things like that. Some of the people that they brought in came actually from the entertainment area. So the CEO used to run the international arm of Cirque du Soleil. And so they bring just a really cool perspective of, hey, how do you engage an audience? How do you present? So the MC for tomorrow night for us actually just came back from Paris of being the MC for the Olympics. She's one of
You'll have an in-game MC.
So we have an in-game
Oh,
MC that will
that.
be doing it,
Yeah.
and she'll be pumping up the crowd. We'll be utilizing a couple of different cheers and chants so that we can highlight moments. So you get a huge kill, a great long rally, and that play finishes, and the crowd goes nuts. Well, in the in-game production, how do we even amplify that? And so we've been working on the lighting. And so you'll see, hey, a big kill, and there'll be music that goes, and we'll teach the fans the cheer, and there'll be lights that change and stuff like that. So we're really trying to, again, enhance that audience experience. Because while volleyball, yes, is amazing and an incredible sport to watch, we also need to think about the overall entertainment value and how you highlight that if you're going to elevate the sport beyond what it is and maybe what we aspire for it to be.
Awesome.
Well, I love you guys talking about the rules and replay, but as you might suspect, we've got our first message from a Cornhusker fan, and they want to know if your guys' spiel has cut into our Cornhusker time. And
Oh my goodness.
Nebraska fans know we're still Jamie's long-winded response and this discussion on replay will not cut into Cornhusker talk. So speaking of passionate fans, we will get plenty of Nebraska talk, so don't you guys worry. But I want to talk about the strategy we already talked about. It kind of worked out this way to start and end in the Final Four city. But I love it. And whether I get in trouble or not, I've been saying that Louisville is the mecca of college volleyball for 2024. So,
by the way, your messages are about to blow up. If you say that.
Yeah,
Considering right after Nebraska,
yeah.
do not allow me to be any part of like collateral damage here. I do not want to get hit with shrapnel.
Well, I mean, I only had 3 nasty grams last night, and I was doing good. So we gotta light somebody's fire with. Well, there's some rivals here, so
Yeah, sure.
I got to upset somebody this week. So, but no, I think it's awesome for Louisville, and
Sure.
we talk about the state of volleyball. I mean, the state of Kentucky hasn't done that bad. This decade with UK and Louisville, it's a nice little volleyball state in its own.
Yeah.
Playing some dang good volleyball here, especially at the college level. But talk about Louisville as a city and the boost it's got to have this year with this event. Saw a lot of red around here already this morning. And then ending the year in December, what it's going to do for the Louisville area.
Yeah, I think it's a great narrative. I'm so happy that it worked out that we were able to start this event and start this season in the same place and have the first serve be in the same court with the final serve will be. But I'll also say that this event doesn't happen with kind of some of the foresight and desire to move the sport forward with people like John Cook. I mean, when I called John and said, hey, here's something that we're thinking about doing, and there's a lot of unknowns at the point when we pitched it to these coaches, and John was like, no, I'm in. This is good for the sport. He's been a tremendous leader in starting to think of like, hey, how do we think things bigger? I mean, it showed last year with what they did at Nebraska Day, and I think it also helps create some good examples of how can this be done in other places? How can this be replicated? What is, not necessarily the exact recipe, but how do you take the ingredients in a community like volleyball or like Louisville, who loves their volleyball? I mean, you've got incredible roots and history, well even before Danny, here. And you think about Assumption High School, that's one of the top high school programs in the country, year in and year out. And so I think it's neat to see that happening here. the embracing that we've gotten in the community for this. But just like you mentioned, there were Husker fans. I met a couple last night at dinner that are here in full force. We know that Kentucky's bringing, I think, 3 busloads in tomorrow night. Wisconsin will have a good showing. So,
yes.
It's exciting to see that type of fandom around and really embracing their home teams.
Well, I think the next step is branching out now, right? It's more colleges getting more passionate fan bases to go with. It's probably like the early stages of college football. Mm-hmm. And now it's branching out beyond these programs in Texas, right? And now where do we get to 20 to 25 really passionate fan bases that travel well?
Yeah, and I think, Darren, we're not that far away from it. So last year for college attendance, NCAA women's attendance, broke the record by 600,000 people. So 600,000 more people came to watch college volleyball from the last record. And so, like, even the Nebraska game, and that was only 90,000. So this stuff is happening all over the place. There were 75 different universities that had at least one game, home match, with 2,000 or more fans. The best that had ever been before that was like 60. So you're seeing it. Yes, we notice the most, prominent programs and see what's happening there, but it is happening, all over. When you talk about the state of Kentucky and their strength, and you go to Louisville and UK, but then you got to think about what Travis Hudson is doing at Western Kentucky and the incredible, program and tradition that he's built there. I would be amiss to say that Morehead State had a pretty good volleyball program, for a while as well. So there's a lot, and Kirsten Becker is crushing it there, and she's going to continue some stuff. So there's a lot of great traditions around the state that sometimes they get overshadowed by the blue and the red.
Yeah, I know. I apologize. Sorry, Nebraska. We are moving on. We're going to get rid of this guy, but I sincerely, I want to thank you. When we talk. And you guys, you gave us something other people don't do, and you gave us an opportunity to be here. And Amy and I were talking that I get where the sport's going, and someday the mothership will be here doing this like they do for football, and that's where it should be. But I just really appreciate you guys saying yes to my dream. And we're in this hallway, and that little scooter thing making a lot of noise. That's exactly what I want.
Yeah.
Right. I hope we get interrupted 100 times today. And this was one of my check marks when I started BB Adrenaline 6 years ago. So this is a bucket list for me, as crazy as that might sound. And without you saying yes, I don't get to be here. So I thank you. And I thank you for letting me be a pain in your butt these last 3 months.
And I thank you for having a vision for this, and not to pander to the Nebraska fans that are watching, but last year the AVCA Coach of the Year was John Cook, and when he took the award, and he encouraged people to dream big, and that's a big part of what we need to do for this sport, is to dream big. And so whether it's us as the AVCA kind of trying to dream big on this event, or you dreaming big in how the coverage and what this can be, not just this year, but in future years. And I appreciate that, and encourage you to keep doing it.
Awesome, buddy. Well, good luck on your event tomorrow. We're going to be front and center watching and cheering. And everybody, coaches, again, if you're not part of the AVCA, you need to be, because I've done a ton, and where this guy's visions, where their entire visions are, is definitely going places. So tune in. You're crazy if you don't. And the fun thing is, I've had a bunch of volleyball players who have messaged us and said, we have a match, we're recording it, and I'm getting home as fast as we can to watch it. And so everybody tune in, and we got to get you out of here so we can flip on to Husker talk.
I might have a couple of fires to put out here.
That sounds good. So Jamie,
we got to make sure Kentucky gets off the court for Nebraska. So
that's right. Well, make sure nobody's spying on him in that close practice. So Jamie, thank you so much. And we're going right on to the Huskers right after this, everybody. Thank you, bud.
Amy, great job.
You.
Thank you. And if you need anything or whatever, are you like, hey, can you cut a
Well, hey, everybody, we're moving right on, and we're going to get into the Husker breakdown, but we thought how better since we have a chance. We're lucky enough to be joined by one of the Husker staff, and Coach Hunter joins us before you guys take the court. So, Coach, thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. Excited.
Well, thank
Just
you.
general thoughts, or
No, we'll ask some questions.
Okay,
I mean,
perfect.
for you coaches, you do the recruiting, you do the camps. I know you love that, but what's it feel like to actually be here now doing what you love to do after that long off season, all that? What's it finally feel like to be playing matches again?
I think the off season every year, honestly, it goes by quicker every single year. We play beach volleyball, we go recruiting, we do camps, but I feel like just a week ago we were playing in semifinals and in the national championship, and now we're back. So
Yeah.
As long as it is, it's definitely longer than our season, that off season is, but it feels like we're right back in it. But I think we didn't lose any seniors last year. We have 4 new additions, and so it's really exciting to get out and play someone different than ourselves, and to watch this team create their identity and create their own morals and values and what's important to them, and just see how they create that in our first match.
Absolutely.
First of all, great nails.
Thank
Look
you.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
I guess my biggest question as a coach is, you go to the national championship and you guys played great. I mean, it could have gone either way depending on a couple points each set. What do you look at this spring and go, this is where we need to improve, and this is the focus that we need to have for the next 8 months? It's a long time. So what was
Yeah.
the main things for you guys?
I think for us was just reflecting back on how did we have such a great season, and then a final match that felt like things got away from us and we weren't in control. And I think as an athlete, you want to be in control, and especially on the biggest stage. And we had a really young team. We had 4 freshmen starting and contributing. And so now it's just like, hey, we've been there before. We know what it takes, and how can we build on that and use that as experience, and just kind of a mindset thing. I would say we focus on a little bit more than technical or tactical. We're always training super hard and working on technique in our gym, but we felt like the area we could fine tune is just our mentality, and knowing that we're Nebraska, we're going to have a target on our back, and hopefully we make it really far in the postseason, and preparing for that. And so I think it was just kind of a mindset shift, and we've done a lot of discovering who our team is and what makes us tick and what environment we need to really grow and really thrive, and just kind of fine tuning those types of things.
Yeah, you're never the underdog. That's a strange feeling. If you could put your finger on one thing that you guys said, okay, this is how we're going to change our mentality, or we're going to practice different. Is there something that you guys did specifically to really work on that mindset?
The biggest thing I would say we do now is at the end of practice, we'll give them a really tough drill that they have to just figure it out, find a way. There's a goal, and they're there until they hit the goal. And usually during that part of practice, there's not a lot of coach feedback. It's just mostly, hey, you have to pass 10 perfect
Figure it
balls.
out on your own.
Yes, because during a match, it's the 6, 7, 8, or 9, however many young women out on the court, and they're the ones playing the game. So we're trying to simulate, hey, this is hard. You have to accomplish something hard to get out of practice, and you're going to work through it, and you're going to do it on your own and build some confidence that way.
Yeah, you are not that far removed from playing, and you played in some really big matches yourself. What do you tell your team to prepare for a moment like tomorrow? That is, I mean, this is one of the biggest preseason games I can even remember having, especially being televised and all these heavy hitters here. So what's the message you have for your team?
It's definitely a fine balance of knowing the moment and knowing what's in front of you, and it is big and scary, and it's our first game and all of those things, but it's also, it's like respecting that, but then knowing that all you can do at the end of the day, no matter who's on the other side, what venue you're at, is focus on our side of the net and play Nebraska volleyball for 1 point at a time. Point ends, we do it again. Whether we win or lose, we shut everything out. It's Nebraska volleyball time, and it's the next point. So I think there's a balance of respecting what's in front of you, and just also not caring and being like, we're gonna do what we always do and what we strive to do. So I think the biggest thing that I've always preached ever since I've been full-time assistant and just with Nebraska is just, can we play point by point, not in the previous moment or in the next moment, just being where your feet are and playing that point right in front of you.
Coach, being a great setter and going through that in Nebraska, I'm from Bergen's hometown, so obviously I love her, look up to her, and so like everybody does. But Wisconsin's talking about going through that same thing, bringing in a very talented, talked about prep setter and maybe throwing her in right away. But Bergen had an amazing senior year or freshman year on the national stage. What made her so special as a freshman to be able to come into a program like Nebraska and handle it like she did? What makes her Bergen?
Yeah, she's a really humble kid, like so humble. And I think even a year ago before we were here, there's still some like, wow, I'm at Nebraska and I'm the starting setter, and I think that really humbles her and keeps her grounded. But for her from the very get-go, I think we just really talked about, hey, this is going to be your offense with our team. It's you running the show. It's not me telling you where to set. It's not coach telling you where to set. Like, sure, we have tips and guidelines and stuff like that, but her gift is just decision making and feeling the moment and knowing who to set and when to set them. And so she just naturally has that. So it's a hard thing to coach if someone doesn't have that, but lucky for me and lucky for our program and for her, she's great at that. So I think that's her kind of her superpower. And then I think the biggest thing her and I talked about is, like I said, is she's running the show. And if she has a reason for why she made a certain decision, I'll support it. So I think we have a great relationship, and I can ask her questions, she'll ask me questions, and we bounce stuff even off of each other. So I think it's just a really unique dynamic, but she knows that she's earned the right to be able to run the show the way she wants to run it.
And can I ask for people with low volleyball IQs out there like myself, how hard is it to come into a top 15 or an elite program and play that position as a freshman? Is it as tough as everybody makes it out to be?
I would say yes. I mean, to use kind of a football analogy, the quarterback, they have all that weight on them. They make all the choices. Do I run it? Do I throw it? Do I throw it to this person? Yeah. All of that. And I know like they get criticized a ton for it, but no one knows what it's like until you're in those shoes and you have to make those decisions on the fly. So I think the adjustment, obviously, for every one of our athletes from high school to college, there's an adjustment. It could be small, it could be big. Everyone goes through it to some capacity. But I think the setters, especially having to be leaders and they're out on the court usually for all 6 rotations, it's a really big job. But I think if you can just kind of focus on what's important, what are my kind of core values in my offense, like how do I want to run things, it really boils everything down a little bit. So I think it's definitely overwhelming and it's not easy, and especially just when the level goes up and you might have more back row attackers than you ever had in high school, or you have middles who you can set from 10 feet off the net and not just right in a perfect pass. So everything levels up a little bit, but there's always that adjustment for everyone.
This will be my last one. I'll give it to Coach for one more, but I mean, you have a roster of All-Americans, a roster of superstars. I look at positive leaders. I want to ask you about Merritt Beeson, who sometimes, I don't know if gets overshadowed is the right word, but she just seems so steady. And her body language on the court always just seems right here, but almost like a calming presence maybe. What did she bring, or what does she bring now in her senior year to maybe still some of they are young, a lot of them still. And also I got to ask about Andy Jackson's attitude, man. I mean, she just seems like such a breath of fresh air and positive energy. Yeah. But tell me about those two, and especially Merritt's calming presence, baby.
Yeah, anytime we have a timeout, or if practice is kind of getting away from us and we're making a lot of mistakes, or however it feels, Merritt's always the first person to say, hey, can we call a timeout in practice, not in matches, but hey, can we call a timeout, brings everyone together and just kind of reminds everyone to breathe, focus on the next rep, and just kind of calms everyone down. So that's definitely her superpower. And then outside of practice and outside of the gym, she's a rock star. She is the one who will be there when there's a conflict. She'll step right in and make sure people are talking things through and just kind of taking care of everyone. And she's incredibly selfless. So she's a gem. and we're so lucky to have her. But yeah, Andy Jackson, she's like you said, positivity, a little ball of energy. Sometimes it can be a little bit on like the too anxious and too intense side,
Yeah.
but this year the middles, their little mantras, they're the fun position. They're bringing the fun, they're bringing the energy. They're going to do that every single day and let everyone else feed off of them. So, and they're all so competitive. It's not like they talk smack at practice, so it's fun to watch.
Awesome. Coach, last one.
I got two quick ones. I always thought that the spring between your freshman and your sophomore year was like this crazy growth of jump that you would see from the players. What can you say is different about this sophomore class that they learned from their freshman year?
I think in their freshman year, they just relied on like that energy, that excitement, that like I'm new and no one knows who I am. Not that no one knows who I am, but no one's played against me yet. And I think that really fueled them. And it was a little bit just like super high energy, and that got a bye. Now I think this year they've learned that they need to maybe calm it down a little bit, be a little bit more steady, focus a little bit more on technique rather than just like muscling a ball over the net, stuff like that. But I would say in general, they all just look calmer, like more mature.
I've been here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They look like they know the moment, that they know what's coming up, and they're not surprised by anything. So they just look a little bit more like seasoned now, I would say.
Yeah. And then you got some new faces. Any surprises we should expect tomorrow, or people that stick out to you that have really kind of emerged through preseason? No, they're all great.
I'm not to give you the most like Miss America answer, but like everyone's going to be needed at some point during the season, and everyone has just stepped in, and it doesn't feel like we have 4 new faces. It feels like we have girls that have been on our team for years. So that doesn't happen every year, but they just came in right away and gelled with the team right away, and everyone's going to have an impact at some point.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yes.
Good.
Thank you guys.
Yeah, we'll get you to practice. We heard the buzzer. We're late. Thank you so
All
much,
right.
Coach. Take care. Good
Thank
luck
you.
tomorrow. Yep.
Bye, Kelly. Good luck.
Okay. Thank you guys.
All right. Well, that was Coach Kelly, and she is literally on her way practice court now as we heard the buzzer. And
Oops.
I mean, it's so different when you literally talk to somebody on the inside and they know the players and they work with them every day. And you brought up a great point about those sophomores. I mean,
I really just think that freshman year, you walk in, and I don't think it matters where you're playing. It's wide-eyed and what am I doing? And so not only do you have the spring to kind of settle into who you are as a person, you discover yourself a little bit your sophomore year of college going into it, but you also have a spring to train.
thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the growth and maturity, there's so many, especially that fall season when now, to be fair, I think that entire freshman class came in January. So
They did,
had some
but
growth,
you only get so many matches in your spring, and sometimes you have no idea what the lineup is going to look like, and it's just different. So I'm excited to watch them play. I think we'll see different attitudes out there too. Just a little bit of like, I've been here before. They already had swag, but I think they'll have even more.
Well, and I mean, let's be fair. It's not like they lost to a bad team. I
No.
mean, Texas, they made the national championship game as freshmen, and they lost to a very, very good Texas team. I mean, when you get to a national championship, you should have to play very, very well to win, and they didn't. And they go back to the gym and work on it. And I think the days of just showing up and winning a title are over in volleyball, and they've learned that. And you go back and they're a great team, but they also were playing a lot of veterans. And
I think Kelly Coach Hunter, really just hit the nail on the head by saying it wasn't any one specific skill that we needed to improve on. It was a mentality. And we're going to see 5 of the 6 starters back there, and a healthy Krause, and it's going to be a great team, and I'm really excited to see them play.
yeah, and I also get, like, as they walk, I mean, this is why we're here live, is so we get to see.
They're so big.
They are very big, as we get to literally see them walk down the hall and by us. But this tournament especially, like, they all walk. I mean, they're all veterans, except maybe Kentucky has a lot more cards, but they are pretty big.
Want to hear a funny story about Merritt?
Yeah.
So I was at UAB Merritt, obviously,
They-
from outside of Birmingham.
And they are focused today too, by the way.
Yes, they're like, I will not make eye contact with anybody that's.
Hi
guys.
Coach, how you doing?
What's
up?
up?
Not much.
Come back and say hi.
They,
Okay.
there's like an 8-time Olympian, which is,
So casual,
I know.
but not at the
They-
same time.
But they, you know, the thing is that they, every team here is veteran. You know, we're going to talk about Louisville later, and we're going to talk. Wisconsin has several veterans. Like they came up short too, right?
Yeah.
And you can say the exact same thing about them. Like, look at Louisville's core.
Mhm.
You don't think Anna DeBeer wants
Yeah.
it as bad as anybody on Nebraska's
Yes.
team? Absolutely. And
Yeah.
and their staff is sitting here saying the exact same thing, right? And you know, Pitt. You don't think Pitt's team's home? I mean, that's the cool thing about volleyball is most of these cores are sticking together, unlike every other sport. You know, and that's the cool thing about this
We
year.
also have our last year of COVID kids too.
Yes.
And so I think this is one of the deepest seasons we'll see as rosters have, you know, players have been there 3-4 years, and we are seeing transfers, but it's after their freshman year and then they pick a place and they're there for 3 years. And I think, you know, the seniority and the depth in especially the rosters that we have here and probably the top 6, you know, I look at the top 6 of the AVCA poll, like they're deep. They have players that are 23 years old at this point.
Yeah.
So I just think the parity is going to be great. I think it's anyone's tournament and it's going to be really fun. And we get a little glimpse of it tomorrow.
Yeah, and yeah, that's something we'll move on here a little bit. So we talked about this earlier, and I love it that we talked about this with Jamie, and let's get through this quick. But it's Louisville. I mean, you're starting here, and you know, I think several of the teams that are here are expecting to be back here. And you know, when I asked a couple of the players, because they had to report early, they had to give up probably a week of their summer of their break, however small that is, to come back early and report before some of the other teams. And we think that's great. They don't always because they
My
put
summer,
in.
yeah.
Yeah, they get a very short break.
Yeah.
But one of the athletes said, hey, at least the cool thing is we get to be here, and it's like a dress rehearsal for us. We get to see the city and the arena that we want to end the season at. But for everybody else, I think it's cool for Louisville that spotlight's on it now, and the spotlight will be on it in December.
Absolutely. I mean, it's bringing eyes to this city and it's creating engagement in the city. And what we want in December is for the city to show up and turn out and support the women that are here playing. And so I think it's the best way to start the season. Picking a different city wouldn't have made sense.
No, and especially this year, which we'll get into that later, but you know, the power programs, we talked about it as we move on. There's some deep in history. We're talking about traditions later on, but you put that up, and especially the last 10 years, there's a lot of Sweet 16s. There's a lot of Elite Eights.
A lot of Final Fours.
There's a lot of Final Fours, and there's quite a few national championships mixed in there as well. And so a lot of All-Americans as well. So the team that just took the court are 1 to 145, and yes, we will go over a little bit. That's fine, but Nebraska, and I mean, they have set the bar. They are the most popular program in college volleyball. They have the most recognizable coach in college volleyball, the most recognizable players, bar a couple. They are the brand, I would say, them in Texas, which we could probably talk about over and over, but they are the mark, the historical mark.
Yeah.
And they kind of are, they are the tone setters for the sport, would you say?
I would absolutely. I don't think you can argue it. I mean, I'm sure Texas would argue it because their social media presence is huge. I think it's one of the reasons that their recruiting has kind of like burst not onto the scene because Jarrett's been an amazing recruiter, but I think they really did something. Texas specifically changed a few years ago in terms of their marketing and stuff, but Nebraska has always led the way. And the outdoor game last year was just another historic moment for them to put themselves out there as the trendsetters. They're not just the old dogs; they're also the trendsetters, and they have the fans to do those sorts of things.
Absolutely, and there's these guys are who everybody's chasing. Now you talk to Texas, they'll say we've caught them, right? And that's what rivalries are about, and that is the trendy rivalry right now. And I think in Nebraska's gym, they want them again, right? And that's a whole other conversation after this weekend. But Nebraska, who are the 2024 Cornhuskers, and there are some of the main characters, but everybody on the roster is an All-American at some point or another. So give us a quick breakdown of this star-studded roster.
It's like, where do you even start?
Right.
Do you go position by position? Do you go senior to freshman? Do you start with transfers? But I think that we can just look at, you got the top left. Is it the top left corner to everybody, or is it just the top left corner?
Well, I kind of broke it down. Like, you got the senior leaders up there with Merritt and Lexi, and
Bergen.
And Bergen just kind of. Bergen just kind of there.
I think those are your court leaders. They're
okay.
Merritt and Lexi, I believe, are your captains, and then you have Bergen, who serves as possibly the court captain. We'll see tomorrow who goes up there, but they really are kind of the calming force behind everybody. And then you have Harper and Laney on the other side, which are your fiery, competitive, and bringing that to the team. I think they really, really do. Bottom left corner, we have some newcomers in Skylar and Olivia. A+ players in their junior career. Expect to see some playing time from them this season. I think they'll have long careers.
Yeah. And anyway, that's a question I have for you in a little bit. We get to it, so we'll save it. But player of the year candidates, All-Americans, U19 team in their prep careers, and now at Nebraska, and then we have the middles as you kind of break them down, and that middle battle that the coach talked about. And we're going to talk a little bit more about Becca Alec. I love what she does. And then we talked about Andy a little bit. And then we have the transfer that hops in from San Diego.
And then you have Taylor, another transfer Landfair, who I think is probably going to be the one that they truly recruited to score some points for them, which we'll get into a little bit later. But some new faces, but a lot of old faces.
Yeah, absolutely. And while we have that, we're going to take a break from this, because this is the cool thing about our live show is we just told people it's kind of like a birthday party. We send out just a bunch of invites, and whoever shows up, we just take them.
When you
So
can.
we're going to take a break, and we're going to let our next special guest come on here, and then we're going to come back with some more Husker stuff, and then we're going to come back with some Wildcat stuff. So hold on. We're going to welcome our next coach from the Kentucky Wildcats here in just 1 second. So we're going to pause on So we'll go back on. Coach, just introduce your.
Originally from Louisville, so this is hometown for me, which is fun to be a part of. And definitely bleeding blue. I played at Kentucky in 17 and 18. So kind of full circle moment. I get to now coach under Craig and have him mentor me in that way. So it's been a really
Come on,
experience.
you guys can do that. Make fun. That's what puts the pressure on her. But okay, so why didn't you get the Kentucky? Why didn't you get the Kentucky twang then? If you're from here originally,
It comes out every now and then.
Okay,
Our
when you get
teammates
upset or what?
sometimes-
Or just when you get mad?
When
When you get really, really mad, it comes out.
In certain words, it definitely comes out. Maybe you'll hear it
So-
while we're talking.
Only Meredith and I are tight only because we both love Weimaraners. That's our connection. So that's what we talk about most of the time on the recruiting trail. But thanks for joining us. How did it go out on the court?
Yeah, it went great. It's nice because we got to play here last fall against Louisville in the YUM. So not an unfamiliar territory, which is kind of an advantage, I think, a little nice. So it went good. I think I'm really excited about, our serving and what we're doing from the service line, and I know we'll probably get into that, but it felt comfortable, which I think is exciting.
I want to ask you, because I know checking in with you guys are maybe in a different situation than the other teams here, where we've been talking about they're locked in, veteran groups, like everybody's back, and you guys have pieces, but you also have talented question marks, but question marks nonetheless.
I think we, this spring, have spent so much time on our defense and our blocking. And so I think that people are going to see a very different Kentucky defense, a very different Kentucky block. And that's what makes me excited about our team. We are very offensive heavy and saw some holes in our defense last fall. So we spent a lot of time on that. And so it will be cool to see, Molly Tuzzo and Eleanor Bevan be out there together as that tandem. We say a lot, we have two of the best pros in the country, and for two people of that talent to be on the same team at the same time is really, really cool. So to see that dynamic duo be out there, but to also see the time that we've put into Aaron Lamb's block and Brooklyn DeLay's block, and being able to touch balls when we're one-on-one instead of, I think last fall we were one-on-one and it was like just an absolute murder kill to the ground. And so,
well, that's supposed to happen.
Yes. But it's been cool to see that progress. I think our offense still has a ways to go, and we're still adding those new pieces that you're talking about. We have 2 redshirt freshmen in the middle, and so I think that's going to take some time, but that connection will come with such a great setter like Emma Grome. And so just putting time into that.
Yeah.
It's surprising to hear you say there'll be a change in your defense, because I think so many people think of you guys as this like gritty, hard-nosed, we don't get scored on anyway. So if you're going to be playing even better defense than you were before, I'm going to be jumping out of my seat for what kind of crazy days are going to come. So that's awesome. What surprises or newcomers should we look for to make a splash on the court tomorrow?
Yeah, I think Jordan Daly is one of them. We're going to be in the middle. She is really effective in front of the center.
She was redshirt last year, correct?
Yep, correct. So really no one's seen her except this spring. So she'll be in the middle playing. Erin Lamb, you're going to see, you saw glimpses of her, but I think she's going to have a bigger role than what she's had in the past. And then we moved Megan Wilson from the outside to the right.
Yep.
And in my opinion, she should be a shutdown blocker. So I think it'll be cool to see her at the net blocking other outsides. And I think she's way more comfortable on the right than she is on the left. So that would be a cool change too.
As a volleyball fan, I remember watching Megan at Oklahoma, right? And so when she transferred to you guys, again, this is a fan, right? So take it for what it is. But I was like, where is she going to fit into this lineup? And there's an avenue for her now. And I think that everybody that has known her or talked to her in the transfer portal or any of those things has been waiting for that moment that she's been waiting for. And so I'm really excited to kind of see her get her shot, and sounds like she's ready to take advantage of it.
Oh my gosh, yes. It's been cool. Megan can read the game really well, and so it's cool to teach her these blocking things and tell her, just go block the ball, go block what you see. So with her, we don't have to be like, well, we got to block line on this kid or we got to block cross on this kid. It's like Megan just goes house people because of how well she can see what other people are doing. Our attack girls will be hitting against her in practice, and she'll be like, bro, you're like moving your shoulder this way or that way and your hand this way, so that's why you need to roll this direction, that's why I house you. So it's cool because she gets to teach them too what she's seeing so that they don't get blocked in the future by blockers of her caliber.
Yeah. You lost some big personalities and some big arms.
Yeah.
So what is different about this group that we should see compared to last fall, besides the defense, like personalities, leadership, etc.?
I think it's cool because there's now nobody on this team that won a national championship. So you're, have this takeover of our seniors, they get to create their own kind of culture and their own leadership. And so I think it's very different than any other leadership we had when we had those people that had won a natty on the team. And so it's a little more laid back, but we played really well when we're like on the line of being goofy and serious. And so I think they have a lot of fun with that. They're not super serious and hardcore like groups in the past have been. But I think that we can be successful with that. But I think you'll see a lot of joy. You'll see a lot of smiles, a lot of personality. They'll be laughing and cutting up on the court, and maybe in times where you're like, oh, I don't know why they're smiling. But they truthfully just play well that way. And so I think there's some differences you might see personality-wise.
Okay. Nail shout out first, Aaron. Nails. You need to do a
Yeah,
nail
hey.
feature.
They're so cute.
Yeah. Your nails look great.
Thank you.
Well, what I should ask you is, the fit for tomorrow night, because, normally you guys, coach comes out, all dressed up. You guys are pretty casual. And then every once in a while, kid, you just come out.
You just gotta spice
Ready.
it up every now and
Dressed
then.
to
I know.
the
So are you
nines.
spice? ESPN
Yeah.
in the YUM Center. It feels like a night you would spice it up, or are you going?
I'm wearing a dress. Is that
Heels?
spicing it up?
Yeah, but not like.
No.
Oh my gosh, can you imagine me jumping over that thing that's in front of the
No, that's true.
bench? I would fall on my face.
Lily's the one who usually just comes in the custom Nikes, like she might be subbed in at some point. She's the one who's like, "Are you practicing today?"
Yes, yes.
Or,
I think she might be wearing heels tomorrow.
all right, well, we'll be there. Okay.
Will she be the tallest on the bench?
Maybe.
Yeah.
A few things. Coach Ben, I feel like he loves these changes because to me, he just seems like a bad scientist. Like the more he can mess around with stuff,
Sure.
like that almost excites him. Like, what can we move? And like, heck with it. Let's just mess around with everything.
Yeah.
How has his influence the last couple of years changed and improved having a new roster
Yeah.
since the championship?
Yeah, I think that Ben is super creative, and I think the way that he looks at the game is, like you said, very different than the traditional coach maybe would. And so this concept of rebounding, this concept of, well, if we can't kill it, let's keep the ball on our side. So let's try to tip it into the block and cover it, and let's try again to hit it. If we don't like it again, let's tip again and cover it and run it the other way. And so he's just very creative and very analytical. And so he will deep dive into stats of other teams. What's the standard of the SEC? What's the standard of the top 5 teams, the top 4 teams, of all these different stats and statistics? And then we take, okay, here are the pieces that we have on our team. What of those stats can we, meet or be the margin of, and have that every single day? And if one has to be lower, that's okay, but we're going to be really great at the top 3 that the top 4 teams have. So he's just really, really good at being creative, but also like deep diving stats. So it makes sense when it's, hey, we're going to change this because of this, this, and this. So when we explain that to our team, they are not resistant to changing it because of how well he researches and explains it.
Yeah, I know. Like when you guys had a huge injury and this spring, and I was crushed. I'm sure the athlete was crushed, and I just wanted to be all grumpy and pessimistic like I am. And Ben's like, "Hey, well, here's just what we're gonna do, and we'll be fine. It might not be right away." And I'm like, "Would you just be grumpy with me for a little bit?" And he just refused. And I'm like, "Yeah, I know."
No, he's
I'm like,
not, he's
I'm
not
like,
grumpy like that at all.
I know, and I tried, but I just gave up, and he convinced me. And so, but coach's philosophy to schedule the best up front, and your schedule, others in your conference don't do that.
Yep.
And I say, why?
Right.
Because a team like this year with so many new pieces. So explain that to a guy that doesn't understand volleyball, right? It would be easy to go play a couple, hey, let's get these new pieces acclimated.
Yep.
But here you are, Nebraska, and then you're going to come back and play Louisville soon. Talk about coach's philosophy on that.
Yeah. I think that playing teams like this early on, obviously it helps you if you get a win. It helps you if you can take a set off from or you learn something about yourself. And I think a really good example is we started the season last year,
Yeah.
2-7 against a lot of good teams. But I'll tell you what, in those first 4 weeks, we learned so much about ourselves. And we would have never learned those things until later on if we hadn't done it early on.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why Craig does it. And I know Craig does it because then we're traditionally really good in November and December.
Yep.
And we are that good that late in the year because of how hard we schedule at the beginning. And we can learn so much about ourselves and the standard of which we maybe have to get to, or where we need to improve by playing teams like Nebraska, like Louisville, all the teams that are playing in the top 25.
Another thing that I say, and I said last night when I talked to some future verbals of your guys's, and I think I joke that they all have coaches' mentality, right? They're quiet, they're focused, they're intense, right? Like I get now what somebody told me a couple of years ago when I started covering recruiting. Is like, you're going to start to see perfect fits for programs.
Mm-hmm.
And I get it now. I also, it ticks me off that coach doesn't get more street cred than he gets, right? Because you guys did win a national title
Right.
in 2020, and not many programs can say that,
Yeah.
right? But I always say that you guys are the best program that nobody talks about, right? Why? How do you guys feel about that?
I think for us, we try to not let the noise be the noise. Like the noise is in the background.
Well, there is no noise.
There's not a lot of noise around it, but I think that we just kind of silently do our own thing, and we trust what we do and know what we do is awesome. And so, I think that our recruiting class you got to talk to is awesome, and I think they fit us really, really well. And I think they will be terminal, and I think that class kind of has some sneaky people in it, but it also has some big names in it too. And so it makes us excited about it. But Craig and our staff is so good at developing people. So we can take a recruit that is, let's say top 50 and is ranked 50 and take them to be a top 10 player at the end of their career. And so we're really good at developing people and developing players. And so I think that's maybe why we go under the radar a little bit. It's because we develop people when they get here. We don't maybe take the number one outside of the class. We don't get those kids sometimes, but we develop them at the end.
Yeah. They and you did a good job. I think every one of them said the exact same thing. They just know how good they are. They don't care if certain publications know how good they are. They just know it. So you've done a good job. So that's what, so anyways, go ahead.
I think that is a reflection of coach,
Yeah.
and I always like to call him like the silent assassin.
Yeah.
You have no idea how he does it, but he always finds a way. And I played against this man when I was at Alabama. So, I mean, he's been doing it for so long, and it doesn't matter if it's an injury, if, I don't know, something weird happens on the schedule, like he's so even keel and he knows how to react and respond and get the best out of his players, like I think you're talking about. And it's such a joy to watch because you don't always see that. And I think it would be very hard to find somebody leave that program and have anything bad to say about him, which is just the ultimate, chef's kiss as a coach. Like that's what you want out of your team.
Yes. I think our team appreciates too, your even keeledness is, it can be like 23-23 and he will come into the timeout same as if we're killing someone 20-10. Like he is very good at being calm in very chaotic situations where I'm like ready to pull my hair out. So it's very admirable.
Have you guys been in the updated Coliseum?
Yes. So we got to play our Dayton scrimmage, I guess on Friday in there with no fans. I don't think the concourse was ready for people, but we got to play in the gym and my goodness, it is beautiful.
Okay, just tell me, how low did you guys set that air conditioning?
Oh.
How low did you turn that baby down?
It was breezy in there, but I think only 2 of the 4 were working at the time, so I can't imagine when all 4 are finally turned on.
I don't think you want them. I think you're gonna say, you know what, we're good with no AC. We're used
Oh,
to
no.
it.
Oh my
No.
God. You don't want that.
Skinner's gonna turn that thing down to like 48 and just have an iced tea and just kick back.
Good for
Oh, that's
you
gonna be,
guys.
I mean, but how does it look? Like, tell the locker rooms just.
It's really, really pretty. They put some wood accents in there. The ceiling, I could just sit there and stare at it for days. It's so beautiful. It's kind of checkered blue. It's got some black over top of the stands. The lighting in there just helps everything shine brighter and be that pretty UK blue is just really shining in there. And then to have the concourse go a full circle is awesome. And to have that little club section that overlooks kind of the court, I think will be really nice for fans and a cool perspective for them to enjoy the game too from the inline instead of being on side.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You're from Louisville, right? Kiva?
I actually played at Mama.
That's right. Okay. And high school?
Mercy.
Okay. So having this match here, knowing that the Final Four is here in December, what does that mean to you, or what would that have meant to you when you were like in high school, being able to see this?
Oh man, it might have been around at one point when I was in high school. I think I came. When was the last time I was in Louisville?
The Final Four was 2018. I'm making things up now, but something.
It was here before, and I think I came and saw it. But I think it's just Louisville is such a big volleyball community, and Kiva and Mava and all these people have grown it into what it is, and so that people are going to turn out for the Final Four when it is here, and so to have it here in your hometown. And then to even be like playing in or a part of it, like Eleanor, for example, she went to Mercy too and is from here. And so to have the opportunity to potentially play at home in front of home crowd for your, final couple games, would just be so special and so sweet. And
Should we expect like the Mercy student section to be here tomorrow with signs?
That
for
would be
you
awesome.
And Eleanor.
that'd be awesome. Well, another fun fact is our director of ops also went to Mercy.
Oh,
so
wow.
there's 3 of us on our squad right now. So yeah, I
And
hope
her
so.
dad will be here.
Oh my gosh, my
Okay.
dad will definitely be
Yeah.
here. Yes, yeah, I have a whole crew coming, so it's nice that they get to come support our team and be around for that.
Yeah. Speaking of Eleanor and Emma, their last shots.
Mhm.
How are they feeling? What should we expect from their personalities? Is anything different for them this year, or are they just kind of taking it all in stride?
I think that Emma's communication has really come out, and making sure we talk about communication loops. So closing the communication loops between her and her attackers. Her being that senior, I think knowing that it's her last season, she's like, I'm going to give everything I can into this. And so making sure that she's constantly communicating with them, I think that's something that she's really improved on. And then Eleanor is just as steady as they come. She's one of the most consistent bros in the country, I would say. And so I think her demeanor has not changed, but her voice has gotten a little louder, which I think are both advantageous for our team and really important for our success.
Love that.
Meredith, we're gonna let you go so we can get back to breaking down your team and talking. Best of luck tomorrow, and as you guys move through the season, excited to see those new pieces hop in. And also one of your sophomores who we didn't get to talk about, but I'm guessing we'll talk about her a little bit and the summer that she had, along with her freshman year as we get in. But excited to see those new pieces, along with some of your overshadowed seniors who've had pretty dang good SEC and Kentucky careers. We'll talk about them as well. And one thing we know is you guys will definitely give it everything you guys have tomorrow.
We will.
And surprise, I'm excited to see some of those overshadowed players get on the big stage. And sometimes you make your name for yourself when you play teams that everybody else is showing up to watch, and see what you guys do tomorrow night. But it's going to be a pretty cool atmosphere.
I think so too. We're
I think
excited.
so too. Yeah, have fun, and thanks for your time.
Awesome. Yes, thanks for having me.
Yeah, everybody, that's Meredith
Thank
Jewell,
you.
assistant coach for Kentucky back in her hometown. And Chris, thank you so much. Appreciate it. But and we're going to get back with that. We'll take, we're not going to take any break. We are roll right in back to Husker Nation and talk about these programs. And so as we go make that quick transition, let's go into the Husker new faces.
Okay.
We talked about their names, and you had talked about Livy Mock and Sky Pierce. First of all, 2 amazing players, with the incoming freshmen, and we'll see. Coach talked about, everybody on this team is going to be needed at some point, but Skylar got quite a bit of play in their spring game, in their spring match, and Livy did too. I was interested. Coach Cook made a comment during spring ball, I believe, that it's going to be hard to keep her off the court because of how well she's playing. Now, I don't know if that's gamesmanship on his part or what. Now, I know
It could be both. I mean, they're so talented, and I think the benefit that the coaches have of their programs is stats.
Yeah.
And so they stat every practice, every scrimmage, everything. But I would expect to see them get some playing time this year.
Yeah, and I think it's long seasons, and this is the part of the game I wish I knew better. In football, I know when you sub down, and I know when there's matches that you get way out in front of, and when people need breaks and what. I don't understand that enough with volleyball. That's your area, but this is where I don't question, but this is what I ask prospects all the time. Okay, you're going to these programs, and anywhere else in the country, you're stepping in, especially look at these recruits. They're stepping in, except maybe Texas, right? Anywhere else in the country and playing from day one, right? Where maybe here we saw that roster, right? And maybe you have to wait a year, barring injury, there. And I wonder what that's like.
Those
for
are tough,
anybody.
Yeah. I think they're tough conversations that you have with recruits. I think, Coach Jewell talked about it a little bit, is how we develop our athletes. And so I don't think it matters where you decide to go to school, whether you're going to be a bench player or a starter. I hope that those are some of the questions that recruits are asking coaches is, what is your long-term vision for me? Not
Sure.
just my freshman year. What do you see me doing senior year? And we know we can't predict the future, but maybe give me an example of somebody that you helped develop over the course of their 4 years. And I think all of the coaches here have so many examples of, well, look at what we did with this player.
Right.
And so, Skylar and Livy, they could absolutely be people who said, I'm all bought in on training my freshman year. And I know if I break the floor, great, I got an opportunity. If not, I'll wait my time. I'll be a great practice player. I'll contribute, but I'm still going to be competitive enough to be prepared for when my number is called and then the next year following, because their pressure never stops at schools like that.
Right. And you're still training with future pros ahead of you.
That practice gym has got to be one of the toughest practice gyms in the country.
I talked with a father of 27, and he's like, that place, that's the most competitive place I've ever seen.
I mean, if you're Olivia, you're playing libero on the B side.
Oh,
you're digging, Merritt and Andy, and you're having to get better at that. And so it's still a pretty cool opportunity.
Yeah. And I just wonder, I mean, and I get that. And I think we get the mindset because we saw what last year's freshmen did. And we still have to remember that's a 98% commonality. That just doesn't happen. The way it still happens 98% of the time is you come in, you train for a year, maybe you play sparingly.
Mm-hmm.
And that's at most Division I programs you're playing. And I think we see what happens for juniors and seniors, the physicality and the maturity and the training there. But still, I wouldn't be surprised if either one of them gets thrown in, that they answer the bell because they're that talented. And that's why you're Nebraska, right? You recruit those kids every year. Let's look at the transfer end. And you had talked about the most coveted transfer in the portal this year.
Yeah, Taylor Landfair. I think when her name went up there, every coach in the country scrambled to get her phone number, sent her a message, and tried to get her on a visit. Yep. And so if there's one area that I think Nebraska could improve on is point scoring. They always have such long rallies. They keep teams to such a low hitting percentage. But if I had to take a guess of a way that they could improve their gym, it's getting more kills. And Taylor is somebody who can do that. She is a automatic kill sometimes. And so I think that was a really great addition. And then we also have Layla Blackwell up there, who is just giving them depth in the middle, which I think is going to help them as well.
Right. And so it's talking about what's that attacking events. That's the strength of Landfair's game. And with the depth that Nebraska has, they might not have to use her in situations that Minnesota did. And, she was Big Ten Player of the Year 2 years ago. And so you're wondering what player you're going to see. And Nebraska can probably use her in different situations. And so that's why you get a new environment. And how will Nebraska use her? They don't have to use her in the similar situations.
My guess is, this is just a guess, but that we see Taylor in the front row and Harper in the back row for her, because Harper's BIC attack, her back row attack, is so gnarly. Yes. I mean, how do you not have that arm in there? And she's such a quick defender. Passing was pretty solid as a freshman, and so I just imagine it got better in the gym this spring. And so it's how do you keep that many arms on the floor at all times and be able to utilize them?
And so with that, let's move on to some of the storylines for Nebraska. And when you're the most popular program in the country, you're gonna have storylines, and I think they have a lot of them. From starting with way back last year, you have the whole motivation to get back to the championship game, right? I think they have so many that we don't even really talk about that. The whole press conference last year, which talks to you about how far volleyball needs to come. That was a big deal, right? In other sports, maybe not the biggest deal, but volleyball was in need of stories, so that became a big deal. I loved Becca Alec for that, the way she stood up for her teammates. I became an instant fan for her, and I actually thought Harper Murray was just speaking her mind. I thought that was a that was a true freshman who was completely hurt and devastated after a game. I didn't like the question, to be honest, but I thought that was her being real, and I'm all for athletes being real. We get way too many pat answers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And she was being real in an environment, and I had no problem. I actually gained I really felt.
I was going to say it was real and not disrespectful.
No.
She answered the question. She was mad they lost. She wants to win. She's
Yeah.
been winning since she was 12 years old.
Right.
So she has a family of winning. And so
Yeah.
for her to speak her mind like that, I thought was 100% acceptable. And it just gave us a quick glimpse at how much she does care.
Right, and for Becca to jump in and
Yes.
defend her, I
Mhm.
thought it showed the chemistry of that team. So to me, I didn't have near the problem with it. Thousands of people had, I guess, with it. I actually was pulling for them then. It was like, let's start the season today, right? But that seems like 10 years ago.
So long ago. Yeah.
So you thought that was going to be the main storyline. You had Dayton Horse transferring, right? Which the reason I think it is I just wonder with chemistry, and we talked about this because they brought it up, new year, new chemistry, and I wonder simply because last year I thought that group was so incredibly close because they talked about it, right? And not that they won't be last year, it's just they seemed so tight.
You can be close and not know how to overcome hard moments. And I think that is actually a really big hurdle for women athletes.
Okay.
Is you're my friends and I don't always want to push you because I don't want to hurt your feelings.
Gotcha.
So that could very well be the personality change that Coach Hunter was talking about. We've been through this. Yeah, we're still close. We're still sisters off the court. But when it comes to winning and being competitive, we're going to turn it up a notch and we're going to push each other a little bit more.
Like that kick in the butt when it's time.
It's okay to give your teammate a kick in the butt. It's okay to tell them they're not going hard, that they've got to be better. And I think a lot of female athletes tiptoe around that because they're just not comfortable. They don't want to come off as, the B word, so to say.
Right.
And it's still something that I think females are getting used to, and we're seeing more of it from great leaders. And I'm sure someone from that group needed to emerge and be that person. Because looking back, it was probably Nicklin, Hames. She was a feisty one on the floor. And she was somebody who could really, I think, push her team to the next level. And so it's funny saying that, even though they got to the national championship last year, but that might be the step that they need to take to win this year.
And I wonder with their storylines, I wonder about the mental of when they talk about that press conference, right? 365 days is a long time to be locked in, right? You hear those redemption stories of, I hit the gym at 6 a.m. the next day. You need to take a break, right? You need to. And not that you can't work hard, but you need to give yourself grace and hey, you know what? Yeah, we had a bad night. That doesn't mean I punish myself, mercilessly. It means I train a little harder. I do the mental training. What do we need to overcome, right? And that's what I worry a little bit, right? Is they've been holding that, and it wears them out almost. And now I have no idea what it takes to be an elite athlete, right? I don't. And they do. I just, that's my thing is give yourself some grace, step away so you're fresh when it comes to that postseason.
Yeah. I think the greatest athletes know how to step back and say, I got to get better. And here are the things that I have to do to get better.
Right. Another storyline, I guess, is that backcourt. You have Lexi in the back.
How do you score against that?
Yeah. Well, and what are they going to do if, is there, I don't know how you make a substitution out of that. I mean, how do you get, how do you
utilize all of them?
Yeah.
It's hard, especially when you, like I mentioned earlier, you need to score points and arms score points.
Right.
Digs don't score points. They lead to it, but they don't always get it. And so I think there's going to be some creativity of when to sub out Merritt, when to sub out your outsides. And maybe it's just to give that little spark every once in a while. We'll see if any of them have great serves. I think that is becoming more and more important, even in the college level, is how tough of a serve can you go back there and give. And so if there's a way for one of them to, kind of separate themselves and get the opportunity, it's going back there and bombing the serve.
Well, and you want to talk, Lexi Rodriguez, we could do 45 minutes
We
on
sure
her.
could.
I love that kid.
She's
Well,
so
she's not a
good,
kid,
and
but
she's-
just,
Talk about even keel. Like, she's always on.
well,
She's always on.
and I've done 3 interviews with her. You want to talk about somebody who's gracious with their time. If I've interviewed her 3 times. That means she's done like 3 million interviews.
Yeah.
What an amazing person. And then I guess I had a storyline as far as is there a log jam at outside hitter? I get there's a long season. But
I don't know
I
if
love
log jam
Kraus.
is the right word.
yeah, how do you,
I do think that in the past few years, we've seen Coach Cook rotate his lineups a lot. And so I am questioning if he's just going to go, this is the lineup that I need to win the national championship, and I'm going to stick with it the whole year. I think that's a big question mark that we're going to see tomorrow. If they win the first set, do they stick with the same, or do they make a change just so that he is getting that experience to all the players and figuring out the best team chemistry? But I don't know. They could go to a 6-2. They don't have to, but if they needed to, they could. They have enough depth on the pins to do that. So logjam, I don't know, but definitely talented, and I think all of them should be expected to play at some point over the course of the season.
Okay, and so if we go to some questions for the Huskers, one, we kind of just touched on that, an outside hitter. Are there distractions, and we're not gonna talk about the one, but are those? Are they, or do they huddle up internally and just block it out, or can you? Does it weigh on them, or are they a tight enough camp where they just show up and play?
It seems like they're a tight enough camp to show up and play. And we've seen now over the course of the last week, with season starting, a couple more pressers. The E60 thing came out last night. Everybody's kind of having one another's backs, which we love to see. Girls support girls. But I think that they do. I think that they're keeping it internal, and I think that they're okay. And I don't think the distractions are the distractions. I think the bigger distraction is, will you get back to the national championship, and are you good enough to win it?
Right. But even that, like I said, talking about that all year.
Does it get in your minds?
Yeah.
That's a good question. I imagine they have sports site staff there that is helping them go through it. And they have Jordan in the gym with Larson in the gym with them, which, what better resource to talk about pressure and are you going to win a medal? How do you deal with that on a daily basis? And so I think that they have all of the resources to feel good about themselves. And I think that they have the maturity now to deal with some of that, which maybe they didn't last year with how many freshmen they had on the floor. But I have a lot of confidence. And the more I talk about them, the more I'm like, I'm really confident in what that group is going to do.
Yeah. And because I'd be worried about Wisconsin. I'd be worried about the schedule, right?
You don't have to win the Big Ten to win the national championship, which is one of the coolest parts about that conference.
Right.
So, it's all just your mindset, and every hurdle is a preparation for us to win the national championship.
Which maybe in a way that might help. I know they don't want that. They probably are locked in on, I should say, knowing their mentality, they probably don't want to drop one at all.
They don't.
Right. But I don't know, maybe that's good. They're probably like, we don't care at all what any of you think. Just zip it and let us play.
But the message Coach Cook is
it's
sending.
I know they don't. They haven't listened to a thing we've said ever, and that's good. Chemistry, we touched on that. But what do you think? How is their chemistry? Who are the leaders? Because I know, is it Merritt, Lexi, I gotta believe, is it seniors, or is it just?
I think it's seniors. I think Merritt and Lexi have solidified themselves as the go-to leaders on that team. And they've been consistent, which is the thing, not just on the court, but also off the court. How do they treat people? What is, their reputation in the community, in volleyball? And they've really solidified themselves as that. And so I think everybody leans on them. What I do think has probably changed from last year is with such a big freshman class, you probably need a leader in that class alone, rounding the troops and herding the cattle, so to say, or cows, I guess, if you're Coach Coke, okay? Doesn't he do something with a rodeo?
He is the cowboy.
Yeah.
He is the cowboy, yes.
And so I don't know yet who the leader out of that class has been. And I think we'll find out this year. It might have been Bergen. She got the most playing time. Is she the loudest voice, though? Is she the one that's
how do you
push them?
Yeah, how do you define
we know?
leader?
Yeah. So I could see it being Laney. Joe Boy.
Could be. Yeah, and it depends. I mean, sometimes there's different kind of leaders, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I think on the court, I do think it. At least I'm going back to watching Bergen in high school. I just know she always demanded that respect on the court. Yeah. She's never going to be, I don't think, vocal and rah-rah, but she has this look and she absolutely hates losing. Like I know a lot of them do, but she has this laser focus when she gets locked in that has always, people just get it. Like, okay,
she gives you the look and
Yeah, and that's worked. So and it seemed to work last year pretty dang good. And it was crazy. I mean, I just look back in awe how much these upperclassmen All-American were like locked into her. And I was on the Bergen train. I just stood in awe of what she does. So, okay, a couple mailbag questions before we go, and on the Huskers, then we'll move on. And so, leaders, we kind of talked about that already, but will there be a breakout player? What do you think? Will one of the newbies? I don't consider Landfair new, but do you see somebody who didn't have a big role?
Well, I think it depends on how we define breakout, because I think somebody that will catch even more eyes this year and will really become a star is Andy Jackson.
Yes.
It's just, I mean, you watch her highlights. She got a ton of USA playing time this summer, so she's going to keep getting better. Her highlights from their
scrimmage were all. Did anybody else play?
Oh my gosh, I don't know.
Did anybody else play?
She's a different athlete. She's a generational athlete, and she'll catch some eyes this year.
And okay, like I don't talk too much about this. I don't care what people say. Is that not the type of person you want to be a generational athlete?
Oh yeah, she is fantastic. I had a few interactions with her very early on in her recruiting process, like for a day, because she went to Nebraska very quick. Best decision for her. She is so kind. Her family is so kind. It's great to see somebody, like that and have the support of everyone around them fill that role.
And she does the press conference. I didn't even have to listen to the press conference because I watched the press conference. A smile, energy, and she's talking about her teammates. She wasn't even talking about herself. She was talking about her teammates. Yeah. And it puts you in a better mood. I'm like, and we had our tournament back home, and I interviewed a middle from Bergen Riley's high school. And I'm like, who's your favorite Husker? And she's like, oh my goodness, Andy Jackson. She's like, when she does that smile, it just makes my day better. I'm like, okay. Like,
it's hard not to like her.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. And why can't you just be a great player and that person? Right. And I'm like, I can always get behind that. And I don't know anything about volleyball. So if you can be a great player and that person, promote
it's
the
easy,
heck out of it. Yes.
Like her.
Yeah. So Andy, do that. And like, let's clone like 1,000 of you, please. So, and then last quick, how much pressure is on this team as a coach? You've seen that. How much pressure?
I'd be lying if I said there wasn't any. I think there's a lot of pressure. I think, Lexi, Merritt, Krause, they have the opportunity to leave an imprint on Nebraska volleyball. And there's very, very few teams at Nebraska, or very few players, I should say, that didn't win a national championship. They've won a lot. And so I'm sure that they're putting some pressure on themselves, but I know Merritt and I know people who know Lexi, like they're such good humans too, that I'm sure that part of them is just enjoying the moment and grateful for it. But I think the team is putting pressure on themselves. I think that they want to prove people wrong. They probably look at themselves as the underdog a little bit, especially with Texas returning most of their roster. And so I think if I'm them, I think I'd be trying to take an underdog mentality and really push myself and say, we're going to prove all of you guys wrong. We are good enough to win the national championship.
Yeah, I do. But I also think according to, the way they promote the program and with that's why you go to Nebraska, right? Is to have that pressure and they promote it and you go there to win titles. And I mean, that's how they sell the program. And I get it. It's big time athletics now. And I hope they enjoy. I hope they enjoy it too. Right. Like I hope there's enjoyment.
Yes, I do too.
and I'm sure there is, man, what they're getting to do. And I know how hard, no, I don't know how hard they work, but I can imagine how hard they work. And the demand, what they're getting to do is literally 1%ers.
Yeah.
And hopefully they can look back as it being a great experience and just enjoy it if you can, because
it goes by so fast.
Yeah.
And it's the only time you're ever going to experience this. All of them will have the opportunity to continue their volleyball career, but nothing is going to be the same as being in college.
Right.
Especially in the United States.
And know that
different.
there are millions of volleyball players that can't do what they do. There's a reason they're there, and don't be cocky, don't be conceited about that, but appreciate that while you're handling the pressure that's on you is what I would say, because you're there and there is a ton of pressure, I'm sure. But that's all I want. I hope they're enjoying what they're doing. I can't imagine it, and there's a reason you're there, but that's all I want, because I can't imagine it.
I think the hardest thing for all of them, they're 18 to 23 years old, and you only hear the negative, but you have to remember how many little girls and volleyball players and positive things are actually being said about them.
Right.
And how many people but it's hard to remember that when you don't hear that all the time. The noise is always the negative. And
I guess I disagree with that, because I see all the social media. I saw the line 6 blocks long to get into the scrimmage yesterday. That's positive.
But that doesn't hit as much as the one, comment on Twitter where it says something about you. And I hope they can block that out and enjoy the 6,000 people lining up for autographs.
Absolutely. I get those too. That's why I turn off my comments. So I turn off those comments. So hopefully
they can't be that bad.
They're smarter than I am. So they do that. So we'll move on. Our fan poll, we'll post this tonight, but I don't know if there's much of a question on this, but I guess there was some buzz about that. Who starts the match as Nebraska's outside 1 and outside 2? What would your guess be?
My guess is going to be Landfair and Krause.
Start?
Yes.
Okay, that's yours. I'm not even sure what. I don't know.
There's no wrong answers except in your inbox.
Well, I really want Krause to be in there, and I think it's got to be. I'm going to go with Murray and Krause there, and but I'm going to flip that around. I'm going to go with Krause and Murray as my 1-2 for me. So we'll put that out, and we'll see what the nation thinks, and then, as you guys know, our opinions don't matter one bit. We'll see what the coaching staff thinks tomorrow night, and we'll put out there. And Husker fans will hopefully you enjoyed that. We're going to zip on because
are you doing a poll poll or anything?
Yeah, we're gonna put
okay.
that
Oh,
on.
fan poll. I
Fan
can
poll.
read. I
It'll be on
promise.
our Instagram at Volleyball Adrenaline tonight to vote for that, and we'll put it on our Twitter when we take a break. And so, Husker fans are sorry we're a little bit behind, but hey, we had some great guests, and there's a lot to talk about.
I
So
think Jalen is still going to swing by after
Hey.
practice.
like our rules here on the first ever that we know of live show of the AVCA
Yeah.
First Serve Showcase. Guests take priority. I think Daniel Gilman was trying to pop in, but we let
Yes.
that guy on. We'll be 6 hours. I know he talks way more than me, and he's a lot better at it. So no, if he shows up, we'll go. But with that, get a drink of water if you do. We're going right into Kentucky. Actually, nice job. Kentucky just finished practice. They're out of there. They're going to do film work, film study, but we're going to go ahead and talk about the Wildcats. Coach Meredith Jewell already stopped by and gave us a breakdown of the Cats. And like we talked about with Kentucky, different story than the Cornhuskers, and some very talented pieces, but some new pieces and some question marks. And what's crazy is that superstar freshman class for Nebraska that was hands down number one in the country, and maybe other than Texas's class of 25, I think Texas's class that are seniors this year and Nebraska's class that were freshmen last year would rival as the two most talented classes ever in, I would say, in recruiting history. That class of 23, Kentucky's class was number 3 in the country.
This freshman, this
They-
year's freshman?
No, sophomores. This year's sophomores.
Yes. Okay.
Kentucky's class was number 3 in the country. And again, just the stature kind of the programs, you just didn't hear near as much about it, the program. And what's crazy is the one that ended up being by far the most talked about was number 17 up there, Brooklyn DeLay. And the one that came in being talked about was one of their middles who just got hurt during preseason and ended up having a high ankle sprain. And because it took so long to heal, she had a redshirt and sat out the whole year. But it shows you with like rankings and projections and all that, they had looked at Brooklyn they weren't sure about, and with depth and all of that. And it just shows you that you really don't know. And Molly Tuzzo, right, who took the job as their DS, had a huge year. So they got contributions from 2 members of that class, much like Nebraska did. So you compare, oh my goodness, Tuzzo to Choboy, thank you. And then you compare DeLay with Harper Murray. Yeah, we'll step down, but comparable impacts, on the team. You just didn't have the freshman setter, step in for them. And then Andy Jackson, right, with what she did in the middle. And then that was the spot that Kentucky had the injury. And just, maybe a step below what Nebraska got. And in recruiting, that's kind of what we talk about. And you maybe know this. I always refer to it maybe as the big 3 with recruiting and our pyramid. Coaches kind of tell me that, hey, there's Texas and there's Nebraska. And then they just.
And then everyone else.
Yeah. Well, and academically, there's kind of Stanford, right? And I hate to say it.
No,
but
definitely. Those 3, I think, have solidified themselves in the last, 5 years specifically to repeatedly number 1 and number 2 classes. And then I think you have like a Wisconsin has thrown themselves in
Yeah.
there. USC just had a huge
Yes.
class.
Yeah,
Florida.
I mean, who's?
I don't know who did all the recruiting
I mean,
for that
who
class.
did that, Amy? I always said it was like Wisconsin or
Don't get me on my
USC.
USC train. You'll want to kick me off. But in like Florida in
Well,
the past has been in the top 5 consistently.
This
Pitt is crushing it. Yep. Pitt, I look at Pitt and Kentucky's recruiting processes as extremely similar. They kind of go for that, maybe they're not the number 1 kid in the class, but they see something in somebody that they know is going to be successful in their conference. And then they continue. Oh, well, duh. Yeah, Louisville too.
Yeah, you better say them because right now
I
they're tuning in and they're yelling. So
You
yeah,
can't talk about Pitt and not talk about
Right.
Louisville.
but you
Don't
were
roast
and we're in
me,
their
guys.
home, so you better throw them in. Well,
No,
but
it really is similar. Like the undersized outside, or the libero that maybe was, number 2 and not number 1.
Right.
But they really do a great job of recognizing something special in those players and then utilizing them to the best of their abilities and helping them grow. I think all 3 of those programs have done exceptional with that.
so what I kind of say when we talk, because it seems to be, until somebody proves me wrong, is recruiting, like right or wrong, those 2 schools basically take who they want, and then everybody else kind of recruits the next level.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of being honest, right? I mean,
Mhm.
you've been there.
Yeah.
You don't look at X, right? Because somebody told me this year, like I've
Yeah.
never seen a number 1 kid in the class so lightly recruited, Henley Anderson,
Mhm.
because
Everyone already knew where she was going.
Right.
Yeah.
and I don't need, again, coaches nasty grams because it was true. And so
There's-
what I mean is the next level is exactly who you kind of talked about for those schools. And so what I mean is Kentucky 2 years ago in that class, these were all of that next level, and they stepped in and played very, very well. It's just Nebraska that year got everybody right above them. And
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think Nebraska had, Kentucky dealt with Rutherford with an injury. Was that last year?
yeah,
right?
they've always
Okay.
had, well, this year, Benjamin would have played
Correct.
a huge
I'm
role.
specifically speaking of pin production, which is where I think Nebraska had them beat last year.
Yes.
They just overall had more pin production. And that's going to be we haven't gotten to it yet, but Kentucky's kind of biggest question mark this year is who's going to fill in to get all those kills? Can Brooklyn take more of a load?
Right.
I mean, amazing summer that she had. And can Megan Wilson fill in as the opposite, and can Lamb step up a little bit more? And so you talked about Ben being the mad scientist. He is going to find a way to get every kill possible from that lineup.
Well, and so we talked about, you have Daly and the 2 middles that redshirted, and then the transfer. They have their transfer that came in from. I apologize.
She came from Xavier.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so that they'll have to get because they're replacing. They're replacing their 2 middle to graduation and transfer as well, and then Asia Thigpen.
Yeah.
This is what's crazy to me, and this is what we talk about with Kentucky. Okay, so Asia Thigpen was outside DS stud in high school, All-American, Under Armour All-American, right? So it's not like Kentucky, and this, I get fired up, right? It's not like Kentucky's recruiting these like junky classes.
No.
Okay, so they had 2 Under Armour All-Americans, right? Hannah Benjamin lit up the Under Armour game along with Skylar Pierce, okay? Benjamin and Peyton Peterson, who we'll talk about with the Ville, right? And Hannah Benjamin was amazing in that game. She's tore ACL,
Yeah.
and before they went to Japan, that's tough. Like they don't have that supreme depth like Texas and Nebraska. We're just next one up, right? They don't have that. So, anyways, Asia Thigpen plays libero in the All-American game. Well, from what I know, that's a slightly different position than Division I outside,
A lot of similarities.
right? Yeah, and she did just fine.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, she's a libero. Nope. You might see her at outside hitter tomorrow night.
I think so. I don't think that we'll see her, but I mean, she's so crafty and she's so smart. And I think we're seeing a little bit of a shift into back to this undersized outside because we need to, everyone needs to pass the ball better.
Right. So John Cook goes and grabs Taylor Landfair,
Mm-hmm.
and Craig Skinner goes and grabs a libero from the Under Armour All-American game.
Yes, because it's Craig Skinner.
Right. But apples aren't apples, people, right?
No,
Like,
they're not.
so I'm just like, give somebody a little bit of respect. We're not shopping at the same grocery store.
Yeah.
People, right? Like,
Yeah.
anyways, that's my horse.
But that's what makes coaches so different, and it's what makes Craig good at what Craig does, and what Cook's good at what Cook does, and they're both successful doing it. And I think Craig just has a magical eye for players that find a way to get it done, and Danny too. We haven't even gotten to it, but
Yeah.
there are athletes on both of those lists too. I remember when they committed, rumblings of, man, why would they sign her? And it's like you can't question them at this point. They know what they're looking at. They know what they're looking for.
Yeah, having to evaluate. Yeah, that's why I want to do a weekly podcast with you and just talk about apples and oranges. And before we say somebody's the best recruiter, let's back off a little bit and say, what budget are we working with?
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
Yes.
to get the number 50 class at, I can't say a school because then they'll get mad that I said they had the 50th class, but like that might be a lot harder than school X, right? Like, you're only recruiting 10 kids a year. But
Yeah.
anyways,
It's very different.
yeah.
Very different.
And I'm not throwing it out there, just let's give some people some credit here that to be in the ball game with
Mhm.
certain schools is not, I mean, that might be a lot more work than certain things. Anyways, my soapbox, I said I wasn't getting on. But UK storylines, okay? So Kentucky's storylines, what they have to do for the year. You talked about they're replacing a lot of their offense from their year. And and Meredith talked about this, Megan Wilson.
Yeah. I am excited to see.
I
her
am
play.
too.
I feel like she's kind of just been waiting for this moment and didn't get a lot of opportunities her first year at Kentucky, but she's going to get a lot. And I think, Coach Meredith talked about her mentality this spring and how she's owning the moment and she's ready for it. And she's playing opposite, which she's big over there. She's a huge block. I think she can be very impactful, not just offensively, but defensively. And I'm excited for her to kind of get back to that Megan that we saw at Oklahoma, who's a pretty gritty player.
Yeah. And so you're talking about, the year one in Kentucky when they had to play her on the outside.
Yes.
And she's naturally an opposite.
I think so.
Right.
Yeah. I think it just suits her a little bit better. She's got a heavy arm over there. She doesn't have to worry so much about the passing load because being at opposite, you don't have to be in the passing pattern. And so I think she can be pretty, not for a bad way, but just pretty one-dimensional. And I'm a point scorer. And this is what I'm going to do for my team.
Yeah. And so then Erin Lamb, and dinged up early in her career,
Yes.
battled back injuries, just wasn't healthy, and had to play her, early on, tried working her in that year. 3 years ago, I think tried playing her early as a freshman, just was never healthy.
Was it 3 years ago?
Yeah,
Wow.
we're getting old. And Erin, finally healthy last year, had a better year now, her senior year, wholly healthy, confident. I think it's one of those athletes Meredith was talking about, leadership now.
Yeah. I think losing 3 players that were point scorers for you automatically makes someone become a leader. There's a choice that team, this Kentucky team, had in the spring to say, I'm going to own this moment of, hey, I've waited until my senior year to be healthy, or I've gone through the bumps and the bruises, but I'm here now, and I'm going to grab hold of it, and I'm going to make it the best I can. it sounds like that was the mentality of this team.
Yeah.
Whether or not, Meredith also said this team plays with a little bit more joy, a little bit more smiles.
That's Aaron.
Yeah. And that's okay. If that's what this team needs, then that's what they're going to do. But it sounds like they all kind of said, I got to step up. We don't have a lefty opposite anymore who can swing us out of trouble. We've got to learn to be a collective group here that's going to put together points and runs and figure out a way to do it.
And you would talk about that verge of goofball.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's Aaron, right? Where, and that's a fine line,
Mhm.
right? Of doing that, but focusing in, but it also keeps those teams loose. If you know how, they don't get super tight
Right.
if they know how to balance it. And if that's your mentality, that's your mentality, right? And now you're the leaders. I remember talking to, it was Ben after, early in the club season. So January, February, probably right after the transferred, right? And I was like, hey, again, the Mr. Pessimist, right? And bad, like, how do I talk to him? And I was like, hey, and he said, you know what? I'm excited.
Yeah.
Like, this is now their team. There's just what Meredith said.
Yep.
And he goes, I think these seniors, their personality gets to shine through.
Mhm.
And it's their team. And excited to see that. Like
Yes.
Emma, we were talking about, and I was like, that's true, right? Like you get to be your team, and that's cool. Like they step up, and for a couple of days, you probably look around like, oh,
This feels different.
yeah.
Yeah.
And now you've had 6 months where let us do it. And I mean, you still have the tradition of Kentucky volleyball, and now it's our turn, right? Our chapter.
Yeah.
And you have a lot of talented
Yes.
players on a roster, right? Like, we do it. And so the next thing is the next question for storylines, Emma, who I think has been overshadowed because there's great setters in the NCAA,
Mhm.
but productivity wise, for 3 years,
Yeah,
she's done
put
as
up numbers.
much
Mhm.
as anybody in the country. And I guess, she was SEC Player of the Year
Mhm.
as a sophomore, I believe. As a junior, second team All-American, I believe, years in a row. She's done a lot. And, oh, by the way, we haven't mentioned this. They have won 7 straight SEC titles.
Yeah. It's a very decorated senior class.
Yeah,
Still, even though they haven't, the national championship class is a year older than them. But I think that Emma has certainly been a part of a winning culture and a winning program. And I don't know why she gets overshadowed if she's not as big as other people, or she went to Kentucky and she didn't go to a different school.
I'm telling you.
She went somewhere else, which she had gotten more praise. But I think she's kind of worn that as a badge of honor, and she knows who she is. She plays like a dog. Like she gets after it, and she can do everything. She's not a blocking she's a tiny blocking liability, but not that bad. Plays great defense, has a great serve, and she dishes the rock. And she's just a really, really steady setter for that group. And I don't want to say she doesn't get praise because she is getting those awards, but in terms of maybe some like social media praise or being named a top setter in the country, she's really not falling into that category for some reason. And I certainly think that she could be talked about more.
So I put you on the spot just
Sure.
for a second. So the Stuckey girl
Yes, Alexis, yes.
from Florida.
Mhm.
I know she got hurt, but compare those two.
I think that's where the difference is Alexis's stature is so much bigger that when we're talking about the top setters in the country, it's normally grouping them into this who can continue on their career and set for the national team.
Gotcha.
And I just think Alexis falls in that category, similar to Bergen, Cami Minor. That's unfortunate, but it is kind of the way it is. And I think Emma has been invited to the USA tryouts, and she gets to go in the gym, and they're the experts there. They see what they want to see. But in terms of pure setting, I think she is right up there in the top of that group.
So she's an undersized setter.
Yeah.
But then how come Jill Gillen was like the Cinderella of America, being the undersized outside?
Listen, I love
then-
Jill,
Okay,
but
so here they are, the hosts of the first showcase. Guys, welcome to your home. PK, how are you?
Are you guys streaming right now?
Come here, we're live. PK,
Live on the internet. Wait,
Yeah,
which camera?
there.
This one
Say-
right here?
yeah, that one right there.
Ooh, I
PK,
see the camera. Hi.
yeah, PK. Well, she's good. We give her the microphone, she'll go all day.
Oh, you guys talking nuclear right now? Let me not be.
Well, I don't. Well, it's not
no,
your
it's
time
okay.
slot yet.
Yeah, we're just chatting.
How did preseason practices go?
Good. This is probably the first time. Okay, my 5th preseason. So you
Yeah.
know, preseason is a lot, but I think this is probably the most focused preseason we've had. Yeah.
Do we
I'll
have a
say that.
motto? Do we have a motto like close it out or one more point? Or...
No, but okay, so one of the logos for university, it's this Greek goddess. Her name is Minerva, and she is the goddess of war and wisdom. So we're here to compete every day and be smart.
Do you guys have Minerva on a shirt?
We're thinking about it. We're trying to, it's hard. It's like trademarks. We also have like birds. It's like we can't really like add, we're trying. Stay tuned.
We know Minerva's in Sioux Falls has the best buffet.
Dude, like when he said that, I was like, oh my God, that's a restaurant in my hometown. I was like,
Is
what?
it really?
Minerva's? Yes. Yes.
The
And
best
it's
buffet in
good.
Sioux
It's
Falls.
really good. It's literally really good.
Really good. Take care. How are you guys?
Hi, good. How are you? Hi.
One of the questions
no.
of there. Test. Zach, you here? Okay. Let's see where we're at. Okay, let's see. Okay, I think we're back. Coach Meskey tried to take us off the air there with his backpack, but we survived. Daniel, how are you? You want to get on? Come here.
I got some minutes.
The voice, yeah. I said, if we get this guy on live, it'll be midnight. But how are you?
I'm good.
How are you?
Good to see ya.
Good to see you. This is Daniel Gilman, and start going through your resume.
What do we got? We got 6 rotations on YouTube.
You still haven't
NCAA volleyball
You haven't invited
show.
me to be a guest.
You know what? We're players only. So not to insult you. The coaches are very mad about it, but we are a players only situation. Very excited to kind of keep quiet who we've got lined up here the next couple of weeks.
And that's taken off. You guys are crushing it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
That's a lot of fun here with the AVCA. Just doing some social media hosting. I've got Nebraska comes off in about 5 minutes. We'll go and chat with a couple of the players and coaches, and I know they're popping in with you. And how's everything? It's great to see the come up since Tampa.
Yeah, I don't know. We're just kind of waking up every day and figuring it out. Thus the up and down and all around. But yeah, it's been fun. This was, I think I told you, Tampa. This was one of my bucket lists. So we got this, and then hopefully we're going to do a 4-day something like this, 4-day event like this in right back here. Hopefully,
December,
so we'll be back and doing this, and then following the recruiting has been great, and we'll keep with that, and then we're gonna start doing more with a college coach interview every week, and player spotlight stuff, and we're gonna do we're gonna start a freshman college series once every other week. We're kind of trying to educate high school juniors and seniors on what it's like when they make that freshman transition, which can be
huge
stuff.
That's kind of the goal of the 6 rotation show. That's why we wanted to have players on, because the goal is to have that target audience be a lot of the high school and college aged young women and girls that want to play volleyball and want to learn. And I think my favorite interview from last year was Bergen Riley, who came on and kind of talked about the difficulties of making the jump from senior year of high school into freshman year of college. And so it's available on YouTube if anyone wants to go and check that out. And my favorite is trying to get some of the youngsters. And, the seniors, they're so well media trained. It's kind of like talking to coaches. That's why we don't want to have coaches on, because they won't give you anything.
I email all of them now or text them all and like, hey, listen, if it's no disrespect to the mothership, but I just say if it's going to be a rehearsed ESPN interview, I'd just rather not do it. So,
well, you're not going to get coaches that won't give you
No.
coach speak. You know, that's the tough part.
But like Dan, we did an interview this summer before the 15th, and I just said, can we be? I know you can't say things that'll hurt your program, but we can be real. I mean, you know, we can talk in a real way. I'm not going to ask them anything that will put them in jeopardy of hurting recruiting, but
Telling stories is probably the best thing you're going to do.
Giving advice, right? Like, I think people, and who wants to watch that if it's the same answer over and over and over?
Right.
And then you just got to wait for, like Amy, when they get out, and then it's like,
come
come on,
spill the
beans,
beans,
baby.
Who's been the best guest you've had so far?
Today?
Yeah.
Boy, Meredith was good. They've been good. Kelly Hunter was amazing. When you get inside, when you get that inside speak, and they just give you so much background because they're there, right? Like, and we can guess and we can prognosticate, and that's all it is a guess, right? But when they're there, and you can tell when they're being real too. Yeah. There's a tone in their voice. And Meredith Jewell from Kentucky was good. We got a couple. Well, and then PK, my girl from Sioux Falls too.
Yeah.
And she's like you. You give her one of these, and she'll go. And then Dan just tried to put us out of commission permanently.
The backpack.
Yeah, I mean, come on, Dan. But he's him or Todd Chamberlain will stop by. That'll be great. It's just been good. Like,
It's a great idea. Gotta give
well,
it to you.
should volleyball not have what?
They should. And that's why I started the show. Back in the 2020, 2021 COVID season, I just kind of started a YouTube pre-season or pre-tournament bracket show. And it was like, hey, we need to have someone in the AVCA paid attention and said, hey, let's multiply it and start to give an audience. And this is exactly what it needs. And someone that sits here and tomorrow as well is going to be a massive showcase. And obviously we need everyone to be watching on the ESPN too. And you need to text your neighbors and text your grandparents and turn on the TVs at the bars and everything, because we need the numbers from a sports perspective from this sport to grow. And the only way to do that is for us as fans to watch it.
And like Jamie came on, and we'll keep retweeting this and putting it out there, that the five announcer point of view of having the insight from 5 announcers around the arena, right? Jamie talked. Is that but like, that's the, whether you like, my father doesn't enjoy this, but when Tarasi and Bird do the
watch along, the Manning cast, that they kind of made it big. I would love to watch Dave Shondell cut it up with Craig Skinner and watch a championship match if those two aren't in it or something like that.
And like, I don't own my own network, and I don't think I ever will, but my thing is we're going to do that, a Manning cast with 2 club players from nationals next year. Like, that's what we're going to do, right?
Yeah.
But like, getting that and going with stuff of doing that, I'm great. All I say is, when the big dogs eventually take this over, just think about the little guy who was in this corridor one time and give me like a Pat McAfee role.
I can't see why it's not possible.
They'll
just got to keep on pushing.
They know who I am, right?
Yep. You just got to keep on.
You
pushing.
remember me. You remember me when things get big. So what are you broadcasting now? What aren't you broadcasting?
I'll be kind of doing a hodgepodge of different college volleyball. I think next Thursday I've got Texas Tech against Northern Arizona. Got some Wyoming. I'll be doing some Clemson as well, and just kind of bouncing around the country. I have Citadel for a weekend in October, kind of see if they can bounce back from that near undefeated run last season that they had. I'll just be doing the different regional, national broadcasts on ESPN Plus mainly is kind of the target.
So you did, okay. Do you follow all these teams on their social media?
Usually, yeah.
Did you see Wyoming? You want to talk about a team building?
Yeah.
Were they on the Snake River?
Yeah. It was awesome. I don't know the name of the river, but it was.
Yeah, let's do a rafting team building. These guys are getting a lot better at putting that out for future recruits.
It is cool.
Some of them are doing some awesome things. Also, I want to put a plug out. I don't care. We got to extend it beyond the Big Ten now, because Coach Aird from Indiana, the other day, I thought this was the greatest idea. He said for every challenge he wins this year.
I saw that.
And I jumped on and retweeted it, and you're gonna match. I'm gonna match $25 for to the food pantry, not to the student party.
Yeah.
How
about every challenge he loses, you'll put 25.
No. I want to cheer. I still got that.
It's
that college kid against me. I want to cheer against the refs. Unfortunately, I like that. So I'm gonna donate $25 to the food pantry in Bloomington.
Love it.
But then he challenged every Big Ten school to do something. Penn State jumped on right away. So we're going to donate $25 to the Special Olympics. Katie jumped on. And I thought we were on a roll.
It could still be rolling.
Yeah, but nobody else has jumped on. So I think we got to do, I think I'm going to have to challenge the schools here to do it.
Maybe we'll see how tomorrow goes, right? Maybe you look at now we have Bolt 6, so there won't be any in-out challenges tomorrow.
Right.
I'm very excited about, right? Bolt 6 technology, no assistant referees.
But maybe we tweet something clever like, hey, you know what there hasn't been tonight? Challenges. By the way, did you guys see what Coach Aird did?
Yeah, I shared it with the 6 Rotations account. I'll let you go on this one, though, because I had a lot of fun, right? I kind of stepped into your realm back in February. I got to broadcast the 16, 17, 18 NIT championship.
Yes, you did.
That was my first time at one of those events, seeing the high level of talent. and it's a lot of fun, and it's something that I'm excited to see. I know that obviously Love is going to partner with the NIT next season, and they're going to do a joint event in Kansas City in February. I cannot express how exciting it is to see the growth from that level, and to see, obviously I know you guys have been locked in. I have not been affiliated with the high school level in any capacity covering volleyball. It's just been the college level. And so it's cool to see the growth from there and to do that level. And I've got to run now because I don't think Nebraska is going to wait for me. The practice is done, but it was great to chat with you, Dad.
All right, buddy. We'll see you more tomorrow. Yeah. And you be well. You keep crushing it.
Absolutely. Six rotations on YouTube. Check it out, Daniel Gilman on Twitter.
And you watch him on ESPN Plus broadcasts a lot of games. Take care, my friend.
Absolutely.
All right. See you, Daniel. All right. With that. Oh, yeah, that's okay. Amy's off talking. And with that, I think our poll, and we'll get you guys back to the Kentucky poll here. And thank you, Zachary. And so the fan poll for the Wildcats. How far can the pair of Rome and DeLang, how far are they going to carry the Wildcats this season? Texas, A&M's there. They have Oklahoma joining a bigger SEC now. How far can they take the Cats this season? Is it a SEC title? Are they going for number 8 straight? Are they going to be runner-up in the SEC? Texas joining. They're looking for a three-peat, looking mighty tough. C, they're going to end up somewhere in that middle of the pack in the SEC. Or answer D, is it a rebuilding year in Lexington? So we're going to post these right after the shows tonight. We'll have them on Instagram, and you guys go ahead and post your answers for what you think Kentucky will have, what kind of season they will have, and we'll show everybody the answers later on. And I think we have a little bit of a break now. We will come back with show number 2 in a little bit once Louisville takes the court, and we'll be back in about an hour at 4 o'clock. Everybody, we thank you, and we're going to have more guests, more info, and all of that to come on our Instagram, our Twitter, our Facebook, and our YouTube. Thanks, everybody. We'll be back from the KFC YUM Center later on.